maybe the big political fights that will occur in 2014 election. We'll see, and that's regarding expanding Medicaid. By the end of this week, folks have been following this issue, as well as the elected officials dealing with it, are going to be pretty sick of the subject. As we saw last week in the special session, unlike what often happens when you have special sessions, you usually have an agreed to bill that comes to them. That's why you have the special session, in order to take it up, whether it was bringing public service company out of bankruptcy and deregulating the electricity market, or that was in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and then in 2010 making some emergency cuts to the state budget to deal with the recession. You usually just have one bill. We have two bills here now from the House and the Senate. There are some significant differences between them, but there's certainly some bargaining room. The House Finance Committee will hold its hearing on Tuesday. They'll vote on the bill on Thursday. A special Senate committee that's been formed for this purpose by Senate President Chuck Morse will hold their hearing on Tuesday, and again voted on Thursday. It's really not what's going to matter. What really matters is what's happening on the second floor Executive Council chambers, and that's essentially where the private negotiations are taking place between the Senate President, Speaker of the House, and the governor. That's where the deal will take place, and what will really be interesting to see is essentially if either side blinks or whether they actually stick to their guns. I think what is quite possible is that Senate President Chuck Morse clearly has 13 Republicans for his plan, but the real question begins, even if the Senate Republicans stick together on their plan, what would they do with the House plan when it came over, even with some changes? In other words, could there be some more moderate Republicans, folks like Hampton Republican Nancy Stiles or Leominster Republican Bob O'Dell, who eventually go on board with the House plan with some changes? That's what will really be interesting to see. Because if there's going to be any movement, I think it's going to be in the Republican side. Democrats seem very united behind Governor Hassan and Speaker Terry Norelli for their proposal. I do think there's some bargaining chips in both proposals. The House, for example, has put in ending the prohibition for the state having its own exchange. I think they know Republicans can't support that, won't support that in the Senate. But when you're negotiating at this level, you're always trying to put something out there that you can pull back on. And I think that certainly is something the House could pull back on. We'll follow it for you here. It should be fascinating to see whether there's any agreement. And if there isn't, who gets blamed for it falling apart?